Everyone has that dream of building the next Google or Airbnb, a company that changes the world and is worth billions. But almost everyone gets stuck on the very first question: what do I actually do first? That gap between the dream and the first step can feel impossibly wide. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you the practical step-by-step playbook that billion-dollar founders use to get from a simple idea to their first round of funding. This isn't about some stroke of genius or a lucky break. It's about a process, a repeatable framework. Let's get into it. You hear the word unicorn thrown around all the time. It's a startup valued at over $1 billion, and it's become the ultimate symbol of success. As of early 2025, there are over 1,200 of these unicorn companies globally, a number that has shot up in recent years. But here's the brutal truth. For every unicorn, there are thousands of other companies that don't just fail to hit that mark, they fail entirely. They crash and burn, often within the first couple of years. So why do they fail? It's almost never one single catastrophic event. It's usually something much more fundamental. When you look at the research and post-mortems of thousands of failed startups, they all point to one devastating reason. They built something nobody wanted. A staggering 42% of startups fail because they misread market demand. They end up solving imaginary problems. They become a solution in search of a problem. The journey to $1 billion isn't about chasing a valuation or getting featured in a magazine. It's about executing a precise playbook. And that playbook starts not with an idea, but with a radical shift in how you think. Before you write a single line of code or design a logo, the first thing you have to build is resilience. An entrepreneurial mindset is adaptable, ready to learn, and incredibly tough. There's a classic saying every founder should internalize: fall down 7 times, get up 8. Setbacks aren't just a possibility, they're a guarantee. Every single startup is badly broken at some point. Your ability to get back up is the only thing that truly matters. The second part of this mindset is realizing that your primary job as a founder is to build the people who build the business. Culture isn't some fluffy concept for the HR department. It's what your team does when no one is watching, and it's your single greatest advantage. That culture starts with you and your co-founders on day one. So, choose them wisely. You have to know you share a vision and core values because you will face moments that test your relationship. Finally, you need to find your edge. What is your unique, contrarian insight? The most successful companies often start with an idea that seems a little weird or unpopular at first, but ends up being right. When Airbnb started, the idea of sleeping in a stranger's spare bedroom was bizarre. Today, as a global travel institution, they saw an inefficiency and a human need that everyone else was dismissing. Your edge isn't just a slightly better feature. It's a fundamentally different way of seeing the problem. This is the most critical step in the entire journey. If you get this wrong, nothing else you do will matter. The question you have to obsess over is, what problem am I trying to solve? Forget about the solution for a minute. Forget about apps, websites, or AI. Just focus on the problem. And it can't be just any problem. It needs to be a massive, painful, and urgent one. As the saying goes, if you want to make $1 billion, figure out how to help 1 billion people. You need to find something that affects millions of people. Think about huge, broken markets: healthcare, education, logistics, climate change. These areas are filled with frustration and inefficiency, which are just other words for opportunity. A good way to think about this is the vitamin versus painkiller analogy. A vitamin is nice to have. It makes you feel a bit better. A painkiller solves an immediate, throbbing pain. You don't kind of want a painkiller. You need it now. Billion-dollar companies are painkillers. They create something their customers simply can't imagine living without. A great way to test this is the 40% rule, a metric popularized by growth expert Sean Ellis. Survey your early users and ask them how they would feel if they could no longer use your product. If at least 40% say they would be very disappointed, you've likely found a real pain and are on your way to achieving product market fit. And a word of caution: Don't confuse a technology with a solution. Right now, AI is the shiny new object attracting huge investment. But AI is a tool, not a product. Don't set out to build an AI company. Set out to build a company that solves a deep human problem and just happens to use AI to do it better than anyone else. Stay fixated on the problem, not the tech. If you're finding this playbook useful and want more actionable advice on how to build and scale your company, take a second to hit that subscribe button. We drop content like this every week to help founders like you win. Once you're obsessed with the problem, the temptation is to lock yourself away for a year and build the perfect all-in-one solution. This is a fatal mistake. Your next step is to build a minimum viable product, or MVP. And I mean minimum. There's a mantra from Y Combinator that has guided thousands of successful startups. Launch something early, even if it's embarrassing. The point of your first product isn't to be perfect. It's to start learning. Before you launch, everything is a guess. The moment you launch, you start getting feedback, data, and truth. Waiting for perfection just kills your momentum. To do this, try applying the 90-10 solution. Ask yourself, what is the absolute core function of my product? What's the one thing that solves the most painful part of the problem? Then, build the version that delivers 90% of that core value, with only 10% of the total effort. Forget all the edge cases and the nice-to-have features. Focus is your greatest leverage at this stage. Next, you need to do things that don't scale. This is another counterintuitive piece of advice from Y Combinator. People imagine startups just taking off on their own. The reality is, they take off because the founders make them take off. This means you have to manually recruit your first 10 users. You personally email them. You get on the phone with them. You give them a level of customer service that is so shockingly good, they have to tell their friends about it. The goal here isn't to get 1 million users who kind of like you. The goal is to get 100 customers who absolutely love you. These are the people who will become your champions, your evangelists, and the bedrock of your future growth. Let's be clear about one thing. Fundraising is not your job. Building a product people want is your job. Fundraising is just a tool that buys you the time and resources to keep doing your actual job. The funding environment is always changing. After a few years of exuberance, the market is corrected. Investors are more selective, more disciplined, and they expect to see real traction much earlier. In fact, seed funding recently hit a 5-year low. This means that while capital is still out there, it's being concentrated in fewer, higher conviction bets. So, what are investors looking for in this tougher climate, especially at the pre-seed or seed stage? It boils down to a few key things. First, a massive market. They need to believe the problem you're solving is big enough to even support a billion-dollar company. Second, and most importantly, they are betting on the team. They need to believe that you and your co-founders are the right people to solve this problem. They're looking for resilient, smart, and curious people who can attract even more top talent. Third, they need to see traction. This doesn't have to mean revenue. It can be those 100 users who love your product. It can be data from your MVP that proves people have the problem you think they have. It's any evidence that you've moved from theory to reality. Hot sectors right now include AI, deep tech, and health tech, so traction in these areas gets extra attention. And fourth, they need to understand your unique insight. Why will you win when others have failed? What's your unfair advantage? When you do raise money, it will likely be with a simple agreement like a SAFE or a convertible note, which are standard for very early stage rounds. And don't underestimate the power of networking. Start talking to investors long before you actually need their money. Those early conversations can lead to angel investor introductions or lay the groundwork for a future investment. So, let's recap the playbook. It's not magic, it's a method. First, you make the mindset shift. You build resilience and create a strong culture from day one. Second, you find a massive, painful, billion-dollar problem. You obsess over the pain, not your solution. Third, you launch an embarrassing Napkin MVP. You do things that don't scale to get your first 100 true fans. And fourth, you treat funding as a tool, armed with the traction and insights you've earned. This process isn't about having one big, brilliant idea. It's a systematic way to de-risk the enormous challenge of building something from absolutely nothing. It's about turning a huge dream into a series of deliberate, actionable steps. Your journey to $1 billion doesn't start with a 50-page business plan or a polished pitch deck. It starts with a single, simple action. So here's your first move. Pull out your phone or a notebook. Right now, write down the 10 biggest, most annoying problems you deal with in your own life or at your job. Read that list. One of them might just be the $1 billion opportunity you've been looking for.